From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Farming seafood in Indiana.
Using salt water into the food production is inevitable.
How researchers at Purdue University are helping make it possible. What's driving winter wheat acreage?
There are economic incentives to plant wheat at these crop insurance prices, and let's hope we have the moisture to help make it successful.
We'll dig into planting expectations. And storms dump mountains of rain and bring flooding coast to coast. Right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A series of storms bringing rain, wind, and severe weather to regions in and around the U.S. We begin with Hurricane Fiona, now expected to turn northward after roaring through Puerto Rico. As the storm blew in over the weekend, more than 1 million people were left without power and scrambling to escape rising floodwaters. Now, according to the National Weather Service, the hurricane made landfall at the southwestern coast Sunday afternoon. Winds of up to 75 miles per hour and 6 to 24 inches of rain battered the island, raising floodwaters. Fiona is now tracking northward and could bring some wind and rain to New England by the weekend. Meanwhile, in Alaska, hundreds of residents are displaced following heavy flooding from Typhoon Merbok, the remnants of the Pacific storm producing long-term storm surge, high winds, and heavy rainfall over the weekend. The governor there made a disaster declaration in hopes of activating the state's emergency operations plan. While in California, northern residents are dealing with heavy rains, flooding, and potential mudslides and burn areas following a September storm. Now, tens of thousands of residents were also left without power. Meteorologist Matt Yarasovic joins us with more on the rain and where some of these storms may be headed next. Matt.
Yeah, Clinton, we're taking a look. It's going to be warm across the lower 48 as we head through this week, and it's going to be a little unsettled, especially for parts of the Corn Belt and into the eastern half of the country. Taking a look at that jet stream, though, notice a big ridge still along the middle part of the country, but there's a couple of those cooler waves of air moving through the northern tier. And as we head past the weekend and into next week, look at this. We've got kind of a dip in that jet stream moving in. That's some more fall-like temperatures going to be moving towards the Great Lakes and the east. Meanwhile, staying very warm in the west. Temperatures in the 80s and 90s through the middle part of the country today, and much of the same tomorrow before that cooler air moves out of the northern plains as we head through the second half of the week, and that'll cool things down for the Corn Belt, places in the Great Lakes and the Northeast. A couple of showers and storms with a low moving into the upper Midwest on Tuesday evening, and then we've got some rain moving out of the southwest. That's going to continue to be the case. Right along that cold front is where we're going to see the warmer air to the south, more humid, cooler and drier air to the north of that front, which is going to keep advancing to the east as we head through the middle of the week, being replaced with more fall-like weather. And coming up in just a little bit, we're going to take a look at that early winter outlook in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Matt. The winter wheat planting season is underway, but with drought still lingering in parts of wheat country, what will that mean for acreage this fall? AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with the outlook.
Clinton, while the moisture situation has improved in some areas of the plains like Texas, much of the rest of the hard red winter wheat belt is still in drought. However, base prices for crop insurance were just set for both classes of winter wheat and may provide enough financial incentive to entice farmers to plant this fall. The Risk Management Agency finalized the base price for winter wheat for crop insurance last week at $8.40 per bushel for soft red winter wheat versus $7.14 last year, while hard red winter wheat is at $8.79 versus $7.08 a year ago. Market experts say with those levels exceeding 2021, plus the $5 crop insurance incentive for double cropping, that should spur wheat acreage.
Like a 31% increase over last year. So we're coming in at, that 840, 870 area for the winter wheats. And that certainly will attract quite a few acres.
K-State's Daniel O'Brien agrees those are historically high price guarantees for wheat and above many break evens.
It's fully $1.70, $1.60 some better than last year. Should cover costs if we get any type of yield, anything above 30 to 35 bushels anyway. So it should be positive.
He says the big key is still whether or not farmers will have enough moisture to plant into.
Knowing Kansas farmers, they'll probably wait until they are blessed with some moisture to then seed the wheat if they see the moisture coming, etc. And to try to ensure that they get have more successful germination on the crop.
Unfortunately, O'Brien says there isn't much moisture in the forecast for the next couple of weeks as the winter wheat planting window starts to close. O'Brien says right now about 70% of Kansas is still in drought on the latest drought monitor. Plus, the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting a La Nina to extend into 2023, so not the best early outlook for the crop. Some early farmer surveys, though, put winter wheat acreage at 35.2 million acres, up nearly 5% over last year.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Looking at the latest crop progress numbers from USDA. Currently, 21% of the nation's winter wheat crop is planted. That's 4 points ahead of the 5-year average. Texas, it's about a third done, which is double the average pace. Meanwhile, corn harvest is picking up steam. 7% of the crop is now shelled, just off the 5-year average. The I-states are just getting started. And soybeans are also coming out of the field. Nationally, 3% of beans are harvested, 2 points off the 5-year average. And in a year where just a third of the cotton is considered good to excellent, 11% is now picked. Relentless rains across the southern U.S. is creating a worst-case scenario in some cotton fields. Now check out this picture of cotton boll rot taken by Bob Kimmerit, a professor and extension specialist with the University of Georgia. He says abundant rainfall, high humidity, and dense leaf canopies created ideal conditions for molds that are now robbing growers of yield. He found that boll rot is severe in many Georgia cotton fields. So just how widespread is it? He estimates the range from 10 to 20% of the state's crop could be lost from cotton bolls rotting in the field. High input prices continue to be a pain point for farmers planning their 2023 crop needs, and nitrogen continues to see a price resurgence heading into fall, and it's not just the natural gas price to blame. Nitrogen prices averted a major disaster on Friday when rail companies and rail unions reached a tentative agreement and avoided a possible strike. Now, even with the positive news, this chart from StoneX Group shows prices are climbing back toward the highs that producers saw last spring. So what's fueling the price increase now? Ag economists say natural gas used to be the main indicator, but that's not always the case anymore.
Yeah, you got a lot of factors in play there. You got corn price heading back up. You got issues over in Europe. You have tariffs. You have transportation costs. It's everything across the board is leading to this price level and this level of volatility, and I'd expect it going forward as we move into the fall and winter.
Market analysts say while there are several variables impacting nitrogen prices, the biggest one today seems to be the price of corn. Well, it was a decent day for soybeans to start the week. We'll take a look at Monday's market moves coming up next. And later, farming seafood from the landlocked states of the Midwest. We'll investigate what researchers say is possible in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Endzone from Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your Endzone fan now and get 13% off while supplies last.
Soybeans starting the week in the green while wheat took it on the chin. Michelle Rook is back with our Markets Today report.
Monday's market closes mostly higher in livestock, mixed in the grains. Pat Von Trish with Professional Ag Marketing is here to visit about it. And Pat, let's talk about corn and soybeans. Held up pretty well today considering what was going on in outside markets, and boy, that big slide in the wheat market.
Yeah, we sold off really hard today in those outside markets. And to your point, corn and beans seem to show some pretty good resilience in spite of all of that. And as we get into the eve of harvest here, boy, there's some significantly mixed harvest reports coming out on this first portion of the both corn and soybean crop that's being harvested, and quite a bit of uncertainty as it relates to, once again, late season weather challenges that have reduced the expectations on these crops, Michelle. And so here we sit again trying to figure out U.S. crop size against the backdrop of some pretty bearish forces as it relates to outside markets.
Yeah, like I said, we held up well, kind of bounced off the 100-day moving averages in new crop corn and soybeans.
There's a lot of questions about, the size of not just or what's going to happen with the U.S. crop, but in addition to that, the demand side of this thing. And we finally got the export sales released. We had a little bit of business done this morning, about the mid-range of estimates, but China was in the middle of all of that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as we go forward.
And a strong day Monday in the livestock futures. Is that just because cash seems to be holding together in both cattle and hogs?
Both cattle and hog cash is holding in here pretty well in spite of seasonably more numbers as we work through the month of September here. So box beef values recently traded on lowest levels it has traded at since April of 2021. But weights aren't increasing much in spite of bigger harvested numbers. And so there appears to be some pretty good underlying demand as it relates to a protein trade here as we work through the month of September.
Well, hopefully we can hold on to that as we go into the Fed meeting and we get some of that economic uncertainty.
An awful lot of volatility as it relates to the outside market influence here, and the inflation numbers that were released last week are quite concerning to the Fed in particular. It'll be interesting to see what they have to say.
Well, thanks so much, Pat Bunchers with Professional Ag Marketing, and we have more AgDay coming up.
AgDay is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. And Matt, we're really going to kind of dig into what we expect for the winter, this kind of longer range outlook. And of course, it's early, but maybe we have some indications here.
Yeah, it's an early look at our winter outlook because, we've still got a few months till we head into winter, but we have early indications that we could be dealing with another La Nina pattern, so we're going to dive into that. And we want to start you out by taking a look at those current water temperatures. Now, this is the water temperatures from the East Pacific. And when we look at that, that would be our indicator for a La Nina or an El Nino, those current patterns which really impact our winter patterns across the United States. So if you look at this as we head back into 2021 and now into 2022, this is the latest trend here, this darker line showing you that water temperatures below that La Nina threshold and actually getting a little bit cooler, which means that we could be looking at a La Nina pattern setting up as we head deeper into the winter months. So this is the typical La Nina pattern here. We've got those cooler waters here in the East Pacific, really Central and South America, and that flow coming back to the west. And when we move that to the west, take a look at this. Some warmer water here over towards Australia, up towards the Hawaiian Islands, and this is going to set up that kind of pattern farther to the north, where we're going to be looking at kind of a split between the polar jet stream to the north and the Pacific jet stream to the south. And normally here what we'll have is a blocking high just to the south of Alaska, and what that's going to do is push the polar jet stream, the colder air, farther to the north, and then it's going to keep the warm, moist air of that Pacific jet stream farther to the south, coming out of where that warmer water is, and they both kind of come right into the Pacific Northwest, and as they do, we will start to see colder air to the north, drier air to the south. So this would be the typical setup where we've got some snow or some rain and snow here, depending on temperatures in parts of the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and back into the Northeast and the upper Midwest. Colder temperatures to the north of that jet stream, where we'll be looking at more precipitation here, rain and snow in the higher elevations, especially back in the Pacific Northwest. But south of there, it's where it could be drier and warmer as well, warmer than average. So here's a look at that early winter temperature forecast. December through February, cooler temperatures up across the northern tier, Pacific Northwest and upper Midwest. Warmer back in the southwest along the Gulf Coast and up the eastern seaboard. And then there's that temperature forecast, or the winter precipitation forecast. Above normal in the Pacific Northwest, and right here where we're expecting some of that Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Northeast, and then below normal down to the south. So that's something we'll continue to keep an eye on, and we'll take a look at this as we get a little bit closer to the winter, and we'll continue to track that right here on AgDay. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Clayton Lake, Maine, rain and then scattered showers, a high near 56 degrees. Heading to Springfield, Missouri, sunny and hot, a high of 95. And then Farmington, New Mexico, scattered afternoon storms, a high near 81 degrees.
Economists expect strong dairy prices to continue into next year. We'll discuss that coming up next And later, growing shrimp on a Midwestern farm. We'll meet the researchers working to perfect the science in the country. The latest all milk price forecast from USDA's good news. Economists expecting the market to strengthen in the coming year. Now, in the latest WASDE report, the all milk price was increased 20 cents to $22.70 per hundred for 2023. Class 3 prices were steady, but Class 4 forecasts, they surged 50 cents to $20.85. Now, that Class 4 increase is being driven by butter prices, which set new all-time highs in early September. Overall, butter inventories remain low, and that's helping to pull prices higher here at the end of 2022. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack spending Monday in Colorado discussing the newly announced $2.8 billion for climate-smart agriculture. And several of those projects will focus on dairy. Now, according to our reporting partners over at Dairy Herd Management, the dairy sector will see grants that help fund future sustainability projects. That includes $85 million to the California Dairy Research Foundation. Now, its goal is to provide financial incentives to dairy farmers to adopt climate-smart manure management practices and reduce methane emissions. The Dairy Farmers of America and the Edge Dairy Farmer Cooperative are getting $45 to $50 million respectively. Their projects will focus on creating low-carbon or climate-smart dairy markets. And so will Land O'Lakes Truterra. It's planning to use $90 million to reach 28 states, building a market-based network focused on climate-smart practices and dairies with verified and quantified climate benefits. The Secretary says they're hoping to begin these projects, many with direct payments and cost share, as soon as possible. From dairy to seafood can both be grown on Midwestern farms. According to these researchers at Purdue University, the answer is yes. We'll tell you about their latest work next.
Ag Day, brought to you by Rumensin. Rumensin's quality, consistency, and efficiency make it the right choice for your cattle operation. Rumensin, trusted by generations.
You don't often think of seafood and Midwest farming in the same sentence, but that's exactly what researchers at Purdue University are trying to change. Tyne Morgan has our story.
Step into this lab at Purdue University.
We are able to produce 2 types of food in one area compared to the traditional aquaculture or the hydroponics.
And you'll witness a future of food in the making.
Now basically out there the aquaponics mainly in freshwater, but we want to increase the choice or diversify the choice for aquaponics so that we started to do some saltwater aquaponics.
Working in aquaponics for 4.5 years, Yuting Chu is diving into the world of growing plants and seafood at the same time.
So I haven't changed the water for a year, and it is possible to keep continuing to use the water.
A sustainable approach to growing plants and shrimp as resources become more limited.
The current food production is not enough to provide the food we needed in the future.
And considering 70% of fresh water on Earth today goes toward agriculture use, including for aquaculture, she's testing aquaculture with salt water instead of fresh water.
97% of water on Earth is seawater. So using salt water into the food production is inevitable. So that's why we have to start the research to kind of evaluate the possibility of using salt water in food production system.
Recirculating the same water is more sustainable, but the issue is the high nitrate concentration levels. While not toxic to animals, she says the high levels will impact aquatic animals.
For hydroponics, they use the nutrient solution, which is expensive, especially nitrogen and the phosphate. But in aquaculture's wastewater, we have a lot of those things. So combine these two, we can help the farmers in aquaculture and hydroponic to find a solution for their operation.
As the shrimp generates nitrogen waste, that feeds the plants, as this research reveals the guidelines farmers can follow in the future.
Transfer from their traditional aquaculture hydroponic into aquaponics to kind of make the operation more sustainable and also increase the food production for the future population.
Feeding a growing population with fewer natural resources than what's available today. A large feat, but one that's taking root right here at Purdue.
All right, thanks, Tyne, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.